Namaste everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Stars, Stripes, and Sanatanis. I'm your host, Richa, and I'm a senior from Plano West High School in Texas.
Namaste everyone, my name is Arushi Ramaka. I've been a host in previous episodes, and I'm a senior from Montgomery High School in New Jersey.
Namaste, my name is Bhuvanesh Prabhakar, and I am a senior from the Bridgewater Raritan High School in central New Jersey.
Namaste. I'm Shriprada, a junior from Happer Horsham High School in Pennsylvania.
We are here to discuss the unfortunate aspect of growing up as a Hindu in America, that we have all faced some sort of misrepresentation in school, whether it's tiny things or really bad racism.
This has manifested in many different forms, and unfortunately we are not able to recognize it or say anything about it because we ourselves are not educated about or aware of the misrepresentation.
It is so important to recognize the misrepresentation for what it is without feeling ashamed or afraid to call it out. And we also have to combat it. We can't just be like, oh yeah, this exists. We have to be like, okay, how do we make sure we turn this misrepresentation into actual good representation?
For me, in the past, I've definitely been able to recognize it, but I've sort of hindered on the combating it part. So during my sophomore year, I took AP World History, and I was very excited to learn about my culture and beliefs in a history class, as I've been conditioned to believe what I am taught in school is what I should know. But unfortunately, the time I spent learning about Hinduism here was not just unproductive, but counterproductive. Even in the short 20 minutes that we spent talking about the 3 pages in our textbook, the curriculum managed to get everything wrong. Though Hinduism is such a vast and expansive belief system, we have only talked about the quote-unquote caste system and its polytheistic nature, and the so-called myths of the Mahabharata and Ramayana were important to Hinduism.
I think in addition to, I guess very narrow or factual things that they get wrong about Hindu philosophies, what I've seen in my freshman world history class is inaccuracy about history. When we were learning about partition, the partition of India and Pakistan, and which is a very sensitive subject for many reasons, especially because of the trauma it brought onto so many communities. And one reason that we were taught partition happened was because apparently Hindus believed in a divisive caste system while Muslims believed all were equal before God, and therefore they didn't like each other. And not only is that super inaccurate, but there was also no mention of people of different religions who worked together against the British. There was no mention of anti-Hindu violence or inherent Hindu phobia of some pro-partition movements, like the Khilafat movement or the Muslim League. And there was no mention of the role of colonialism. I swear, it was as if the British had come and they had written this textbook and they had given to us. And when you have a history lesson deny oppression and implicitly portray a certain knowledge system or religious system as violent or backward, then you know that what you're being taught is not history, but it's a colonized, reductive narrative.
For my part, I have experienced a decidedly Hindu-phobic inhibition on my academic freedoms when in the 6th grade. For context, I go to a school with a very large Hindu population, especially in our enrichment program. Moreover, since we are next to a very large mandir here in Bridgewater, our Hindu kids are largely educated about the basics of the faith. During our accelerated social studies class, we had a unit on world religions. There were several facets of the lessons contained therein which were just completely incorrect and bizarre, such as the supposedly religious roots of the oppressive caste hierarchy and the constant insistence that Hinduism is polytheistic, but that was not the most egregious takeaway. The bad part was that we knew that the teacher was wrong, but she never really entertained our discussions. She was teaching the curriculum, completely ignoring the genuine voices of actual Hindu people. I can deal with Hindu phobia if I can correct it, but my blood boils when I am put in an environment where I cannot actively voice my opposition towards the utter nonsense being propagated.
Another similar experience I had while taking AP Human Geography while learning about world religions was that Hinduism was a polytheistic religion and has no text, which is completely inaccurate because we have everything that we have from the Vedas to the Upanishads and Puranas are important and crucial to what we believe. I was not aware of the falsity of the statement at the time, but after joining HSC and learning more about the Hindu Dharma, I learned that there are multiple forms of one Bhagwan, and I learned that there are thousands of texts and teachings to learn from. So there is not just one, but instead many texts of significance to Hindus. Now that I look back on both of my experiences and wish I had the knowledge so that I could correct these misrepresentations, because it's important not for us as Hindus, but everyone else to realize what the Hindu Dharma actually teaches and what it's actually about.
This is exactly why we need to make sure Hindus know enough about their beliefs to stand up for themselves on their campuses.
Going off of that, I actually wanted to talk about one positive experience I had in my school, where I was invited to be a student panelist at a staff equity meeting, and we were encouraged to share experiences with being, in our school as someone who was carrying our identity. So obviously I talked about being a Hindu American, and I got to talk face to face with staff members about some of the misrepresentation I faced, not only in terms of history, but also, face to face examples of, both small and large examples of Hindu phobia. And though it was a conversation I was really scared to have, I have seen that by being persistent, by being vocal, eventually, sometimes you won't have to reach a hand out. Someone will come and meet your hand where it is. Of course, that only comes with if the right people are listening to you. So there is definitely a possibility for really good conversation. I really hope this is an experience that's going to replicate itself at other schools as well and get better.
I agree. We also need to engage in systematic reform. HSC and other organizations have led nationwide efforts to correct Hinduphobia in textbooks. We want to make sure that our schools are an environment for learning and discussion, not for suppression and oppression. And this is a good thing about engaging and educating about what Hindus believe in, where we can talk about things like this openly and correct any misrepresentation that we do have in school.
Well, hold on. Not all hope is lost. At my school, I haven't really had the same experiences with Hinduphobia, even though the school's not very diverse. In classes such as history, the teachers try to be as inclusive and representative as possible, and if they see any misconceptions in textbooks or other readings and resources, they'll point it out to us and make sure we know the correct information. Socially, the people here don't really judge based on identity at all, and I feel pretty safe here. I know that Hinduphobia is a big problem and a lot of people experience it, but I feel like a large portion of Hinduphobic people are the Hindus that refuse to step up and correct the people that slander us.
Interesting, Shri. Do you consider Hatboro to be pluralistic then?
Not even that, really. I just think that the people here don't really care enough about religion to judge people based on it. Overt and covert Hinduphobia are prevalent everywhere. I just think that while you three have had really clearly awful experiences in school about the misrepresentation of Hinduism, there's some of us that just got lucky and don't have to sit through all that.
Thanks for sharing. Honestly, that's really inspiring. I'm glad you're starting a chapter of HSC though, so you can turn the apathy at Hatboro towards Hinduism into actual pluralism.
For sure. And I know that acceptance of diversity is better than ignoring it. Skirting Hinduphobia is nice though. I'll be here in the future, and maybe I'll give an update about my progress.
Awesome! With that, we'll be closing out our podcast for today.
Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you for our next podcast.
If you liked what you listened to, make sure to follow at Hindu Students Council on Instagram and Facebook in order to get updates on everything we do.
You can either email hslbpresident@hindustudentscouncil.org or leave a comment in the comments section if you have any ideas for the podcast, want to be on the podcast, or questions regarding the podcast.
See you all next time. Shubhratri.